We've had a lot of people on the podcast who are in development or producers or assistants who have told me they just hate going to set oftentimes. Nobody wants me here, and they just don't like it. They're like, let
Yeah.
them do their thing. I'll show up for the cool moment, but I don't want to be here. This is the Oner,
The Oner? Okay, yeah, I was going to say.
which is a great one.
It was so good.
Welcome back to our review of The Studio, the new series on Apple TV Plus, starring Seth Rogen, Ike Barinholtz, Catherine Hahn, Catherine O'Hara, Chase Sui Wonders, and so many more. Let's talk about episode 2, The Oner.
This is good. You know, in the first episode, it was clear that doing really long takes was going to be part of their whole thing. But then as soon as I saw the title for episode 2, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so this is meta in the way that I like meta, which is this is going to be a long Oner episode about making a Oner shot. And they did a really good job.
You have to love how Seth is making fun of himself in the show while doing it for the show. And at least you have humor about it, right? For anyone who doesn't know, a Oner is a reel or clipped together so it feels real, single continuous shot with no breaks. Now, watching the Oner of him getting to the set and stuff for this episode, I'm like, there's a break. He goes behind a pillar here. Okay, it's kind of fun to pick out the seams, but there's something that feels truly cinematic because you don't feel like you're in a movie for a moment because there's no cuts, there's no changing angles, and camera over shoulder or back and forth with conversation. It's just like you're in the scene. And this episode is all about Matt Remick and Sal Saperstein, Ike Barinholtz's character, getting on set because they want to see the golden hour Oner, that 4 to 5 p.m. perfect sunlight Oner, and they just can't help but fuck it up every chance they get.
Yeah, that is the high level, but kind of the mid level is you get these two dudes driving in this car, driving up to set, and Matt Remick is like, oh, I can park anywhere I want. I'm the studio exec. And so he does. He parks wherever he wants. And then they get out of the car. Then he, chats with the director. And I mean, the camera work here, I should say, is amazing because when you're writing this, you're writing essentially a bunch of different scenes, which are conversations between different people. And then in order to make it a Oner, you have to find a way to move the camera and the characters around so that you can have different scenes without having to cut. And it's a work of art. It's a dance, it's a ballet, it's fantastic. So then they arrive on set and then it's basically revealed that no one wants Matt Remick there. No one wants the studio exec there because he puts too much pressure. Like having the studio head there is too much pressure for everyone to work with. And he's just going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
He's just going to mess everything up. But you can tell that he really wants to be there. He wants to watch this thing happen because at the end of the day, Matt Remick is a lover of the end of the industry. He loves the game and he wants to be there to witness artistry happen. And so you're kind of caught between these two energies of oh, this guy's going to mess everything up. And this guy really wants to see something special happen today.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure. So they're basically just moving around, having different conversations and fucking the whole thing up the entire time. And I don't want to spoil the final jokes or anything, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, the intertwining of all the plot lines are fantastic. Each character's got their own motives, like we said, and they all intertwine at just the right moments. And it's interesting how almost like music, building to a crescendo and having a nice fall before you build again is so important for our emotions and our heart rates and staying in the story and not feeling like Uncut Gems of the Bear where you're just stressed the whole time. And also not feeling so dull like a lot of Netflix or Hulu shows are at the things where you're like, is this ever going to get anywhere? It's a perfect match of energy. And the other note I had was we don't tread slowly into the life of Matt Remick as a studio head. I think other people directing this or writing this would have said, okay, he gets the job. He shows the promo for Kool-Aid at the end of last episode. Now we got to see him start to pick up projects. It's like, no. Things are already happening in the studio life. And that's what I love so much is that it's not taking this like an outsider probably would. Like, no. He's been working in this for 20 plus years. This is just a bigger step for him, but it's another step on the path he's already on, which I do love. The final thing I'll say is we've had a lot of people on the podcast who are in development or producers or assistants who have told me they just hate going to set oftentimes. Sometimes they like it if it's like a cool location. Other times they're flying to an icy tundra or wasteland in some weird backlot or a parking lot for 7.5 hours, and they're like, I got nothing to say. Nobody wants me here. I'm eating craft services, you know? It's like, well, here's a Caesar salad and 3 bags of Doritos today. And they just don't like it. They're like, let
Yeah.
them do their thing. I'll show up for the cool moment, but I don't want to be here. And I've heard from them about other people on their team or bosses who are like Matt, who are just chomping at the bit to have one thing that's creative or interesting that they can then say in the final product, that was me. And you know what? It speaks to ego and it speaks to maybe less creative folks or just differently talented folks wanting to have some hold of the magic of this movie. And that's Matt
Mhm.
this episode, which I love.
Yeah, I think another aspect of this that I really loved is that in order to really sell the story and some of the jokes is that you have to have a good understanding of almost like the geography of the set,
Yeah.
right? And because of all the camera work and all the character movement, they do a great job at showing you the space that they're in so that you can understand. As someone who loves movies, it's fun to watch, oh, this is the set, here's where the cameras are. As just a film watcher, like we don't really understand a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Like you got a room full of costumes, and not only do you have a room full of costumes, but each one is assigned to a person and then assigned to a character, and there's different stages that that costume has to be in versus based on what's going on in the scene. There's just so many moving pieces, and as someone who likes to watch movies, you might not ever understand how many moving pieces go into any one scene that you watch. And this does a really good job of kind of highlighting every little aspect of what goes into not just making a oneer, but just making any scene in general. But then having the oneer on top of it is a really great internal timer on ramping up the stress
Yeah.
on the story.
I mean, we have Matt Remick just dying to give a note. He's read the script. He can't shut up and can't stop talking to the director the whole time, who's persistent in allowing him to give notes and say things because she needs his approval to get more money to get this Rolling Stones song. Which I do love at the end. We get that Stones song to wrap out the episode. You know, you can't always get
Yeah.
what you want. Beautiful. But the whole time he shows up, by the way, I love his wardrobe throughout the entire show. It's
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah.
amazing. But Patty's like, did you forget your tuxedo at the cleaners? Like, you're on set. What are you doing in a suit? Everyone knows you are literally a suit. We have
Hmm.
Sal just telling everyone, look, Matt's a very fragile and vindictive man, and I say that as his best friend. There's this beautiful infighting between them all. But we have Matt who's read the script and he's telling the director, I just really want Greta Lee to have the joint at the beginning of the scene like she had in the script. And the director's like, no, 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 we don't need it. We cut that. We don't need it. And he's like, I really think you should. And her knowing she needs the money for that Rolling Stones song is like, fine, do it. And you have the AD go, okay, everyone back to one. Everyone's resetting positions. And him throwing this little wrench in the well machine fucks the whole thing up. They're losing sunlight. The joint's getting blown out. He's talking to somebody. We have all these hijinks. And again, it's just the most beautiful comedy of errors to have. He's wearing the wrong clothes. He's this. He hits the table. He's talking. All of these wonderful moments. So you're like, okay, this is someone who's been on set and has known these hijinks and
Hmm.
also knows what's the funniest parts to put together to
Yeah.
tie the story together.
Yeah.
By the way, Greta Lee, fun as our cameo this episode.
Uh-huh.
She's great wanting a private jet for the press tour. And I think it's fun, at least with all these cameos, that everyone's kind of poking fun at themselves. And hopefully they're not exactly like that. But if they are, okay, that's Hollywood.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's a caricature and what's not
Yeah.
in here. And I think that that's part of the point, right? I'm sure that the majority of what we see on screen is inspired by something very real
Yeah.
that has happened, right? Like, even Bryan Cranston's like really crazy character from the first episode, that's a real guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a real guy. It's got to be. I'm sure that they shine it up a little bit and they put a little English on it to make it like palatable for TV, I'm sure.
I love when we see Patty whispering to Sarah, the director, if I was the studio head still, I'd get you the whole album myself. This is like right after she gives that beautiful speech of, you're going to be great. You had a great teacher.
Yeah.
And to some, it could feel mischievous or ill-intentioned, but instead, no, I think that's how it goes. It's cutthroat. It's very much like staking a claim for yourself, reminding people you're involved and what you would do for them. It's kind
Yeah.
of mafia-like handshake deals. Greta being like, I'm going to take his freaking note because I want this PJ. I want to
Mhm.
fly my own jet. And I think it's fun. Any last notes on this one before we wrap it up?
No, it's a great one. There are so many good setups and payoffs in this. And from the word go, this
Yeah.
is one of my favorite episodes. It's definitely a standout over the season.
Yeah, for his car to be the final nail in the coffin in this episode
Yeah.
is just great. And when they're
I mean,
driving,
it's a sign of great writing
it is.
where they're setting you up and you don't even know you're being set up
Yeah.
until it pays you off. And you're like, oh my gosh, actually, this is so well done.
It's when you forget about the setup that makes you just feel like, oh, that's masterful. To drop
Yeah.
just the subtlest little, we're parking here because I'm a studio exec. They can move it. And for them to drive off and Sal to be like, they didn't get it. Fuck. Okay, end the episode. It's a perfect little exclamation mark to this one. Rewatching this episode, because I watched them a handful of times, like you said, one of the better ones of the season, written by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen. And I gotta say, the cinematographer, Adam Newport Barra, who did this episode, he's done 98 other things, 100 other things. He's always working. But you look back and you're like, okay, Blink Twice, he was the DP on. The Bear, he was cinematographer for a few episodes. Kendrick Lamar, Outer Range, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which if you haven't seen is just beautiful. And he's done a bunch of Euphoria. So you're like, okay,
Oh, okay.
now we know why this guy
Yeah.
knows how to do what he does. So yeah, big ups. I would love to give him a little something for this. I don't know if they have a good award coming up for cinematographers, but beautiful episode.
Yeah.
Adam Newport Barra. Let's wrap it up there. We will be back next week with an episode 3 review and recap. So make sure you give that a watch before you give this next episode a listen. And until then, watch good movies and TV.